Hey y'all, my name's Mare. Welcome back to my channel, and happy Easter if you're watching this, because we're going to be starting a fun little themed reading vlog where Easter eggs are gonna pick what I read. So if you're new to my channel, I did actually do this video a couple of years ago, so I'll link it in the cards in the description if you want to watch that one as well. But basically, we're going to be picking out 3 or 4 different eggs throughout this video. Basically, each egg is going to have a prompt inside of it that is going to help me pick a book out. That's it. That's the whole concept. I am talking to you guys at 2 in the morning right now because I need to pick out my next read, and so I'm sorry for how I look, how I sound, if I'm dusty and crusty. It is what it is, but I was just so excited to get this video rolling and to pick out my next read, so let's find out what we're going to be reading together. Okay, I don't know what color I should start off with. The blue is just like calling to me because it's so pretty, but also I love pink, I love yellow. The green and the orange are not calling to me in this moment, so I think I'm gonna go with a blue one just because that's like my gut instinct. And I forgot to say this in the beginning, but there are some bad prompts in here. Most of them are good, but there are a few in here that I don't necessarily want to get. So I'm nervous to see what's in this egg. Oh no. Okay, I already read the little slip of paper as it was coming out. All right, so you guys can see that I'm not cheating. The prompt says NetGalley. I was kind of hoping to get a physical book, and NetGalley means that we're going to be picking off something on my Kindle, which is ironic because I've been wanting to do nothing but read on my Kindle lately, and tonight I was just wanted to cozy up with a good book. So let's see what I've got on here. I've got Lore of the Wilds, which actually might not be a bad idea. This is one that I just recently acquired on NetGalley, but it does come out, or it already actually has came out, so that wouldn't be a bad pick. And I know that that one is the first in a new fantasy series. I've also got The Lost Story. I don't think I'm quite ready to read that either. And then I also have The Next Best Fling, How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying, The Au Pair Affair by Tessa Bailey, which is definitely calling to me, but I feel like I should wait to read that till closer to the date. Let's look at my backlist. I feel like we should be focusing on that. I'm kind of feeling like I should read Edgewood. I want to read Lore of the Wilds, but I also don't think I want to read it right now. And honestly, I probably should read a backlist title. So I think that's what we're going to go with, is Edgewood. I'm going to read about halfway into it and then I'll fill you guys in on what this is about. But I don't remember the main character's name, but I know she goes into like this enchanted forest and it's got something to do with her grandfather who disappeared. It's a standalone YA fantasy, which I definitely love. It is a bit on the longer side. It's like 400 something pages, but I think that this one will be a good one to start the vlog off with because it was also kind of on my radar for this month anyways, so let's knock it out. I'll see you guys when I'm halfway through it. Hi guys, good afternoon. So it's now the next day. Hey, I'm still wearing the same shirt because I haven't showered since we last chatted, so fun little detail that you guys didn't ask for. I need to hurry up and get ready for work in just a moment here, but I got halfway into Edgewood, so let's chat a little bit. So Edgewood follows a young girl named Emmeline whose grandfather has recently disappeared, and she believes that he's gone into the forest called Edgewood in order to see the Wood King. That's kind of the basic premise of this book. There's a couple more layers to it, such as Emmeline is a singer, so she's kind of pursuing this dream of music. She wants this dream to happen, but when her grandfather has been reported missing, she goes back to Edgewood, basically sends her off into this adventure where she's going into the forest trying to rescue him. I don't want to get too into the synopsis because I feel like that would spoil what the book is about, but basic feelings so far are that I'm really enjoying this. I actually was reading it on my Kindle and I was able to snag the audiobook from my library, so I might switch back and forth between the two because honestly just having a really good time with it and I want to know what happens. I'm very invested in the story, I'm invested in the characters, invested in the potential romance with this character named Hawthorne, and so far it's just a fun time. I don't think it's revolutionary, but I definitely think it's very fun if you like adventure and YA standalones. It's a good time. I also find myself a little bit emotional throughout this because Emmeline's grandfather has dementia, and it's just very sad, especially if you've experienced, you know, a grandfather or someone in your life going through dementia or Alzheimer's. It's very, very sad to see this person that you recognize unable to recognize you. And so having to see her grief of losing someone who's still around is definitely something I feel like I haven't read a lot about in literature, especially in the YA fantasy sphere. So it's just pulling at my heartstrings a whole lot. I'm nervous to see what's gonna happen. So yeah, really not much to say beyond that point. Enjoying it, speeding through it, read until I went to bed last night, and then when I woke up this morning, started reading immediately after. So I'm ready to get through this one, ready to see what happens, and I'll talk to you guys when I'm done. Hi guys, so I have finished Edgewood, and I'm really happy to report that I gave this 4 stars. I really liked this book. To be honest, there's not much that kept it from being a 5-star for me besides a feeling. I know that sounds very arbitrary, but definitely just didn't feel like a 5-star to me, even though there were 5-star moments in the book. I do have some like critiques, but nothing that really took away from my enjoyment of the novel. I think it's just stuff that could have made it even better. Edgewood was honestly just beautiful from start to finish. I was completely captivated by this one, and I think that is definitely evident because of how fast I read it, and literally was just thinking about this book non-stop, and for that reason alone, it definitely deserves a higher rating. What I really liked about this one was that we dealt with the concept of memory and those who remember us and how we still love them. This one was heartbreaking and heartwarming in a lot of ways. For instance, I think I talked about in the last update how Emmeline has a difficult relationship with her grandfather, or her pa, right now because he has dementia, and so he struggles to remember her every time that he sees her, and there's good days and there's bad days. I was reading the author's note actually at the end, and this is something that actually happened to the author, and this story was kind of written as a letter to her own grandfather, which made me cry a little bit. You could definitely see how this author was impacted by something in her real life and took that into the book. I loved that Emmeline and Pa still had a very loving relationship. It was a struggle for her to be around him sometimes because it's hard to be around someone who doesn't remember you even though you remember everything about them. And this was a recurrent theme throughout the book. It wasn't just necessarily with this one character dynamic, so that was something that I did really enjoy about it. I also really enjoyed the relationship with Hawthorne and Emmeline. I thought they were very sweet together, and I liked reading about them and just these moments that they had. I will say I think it could have been elevated just a teeny tiny bit, right? This book is 400-ish pages, and it's not like terribly long, but I feel like some of the pages could have been used to elevate this relationship that we had a little bit more. And like the author was trying to do that, but I just feel like we needed a little bit more with the two characters. And it's hard to explain what I mean by this without spoiling the actual book. If you've read it, I hope you can understand what I'm saying here, but I just think we needed a little bit more for the ending to have a very emotional response. And while it did evoke an emotional response for me, I just feel like this book could have had me sobbing, and it had me like shedding a few tears. So I just think we could have done a little bit more in that department, seeing a little bit more banter and tension between the two of them. The other thing that I think could have been elaborated just a teeny tiny bit more in this book is the fact that this isn't urban fantasy. Urban fantasy is set in the real world, and we're kind of set in the real world in this book. It's kind of difficult to really get that urban fantasy feel from this book because we spend most of the time in the forest in Edgewood with Emmeline, and it's this very fantastical, you know, when you think of like a forest with like fairies, and it's not what it's about, but it's kind of like that vibe where they're just hanging out in the woods, right? And so when Emmeline kept referring to like her real world situations, it kind of just felt out of place. So I wish that it was just a little bit more organic and integrated in a way that felt more natural to the story, because we start off in the real world and towards the end of the book we end up back in the real world in some parts, and I just feel like whenever it was happening in the middle it would just be kind of like an afterthought. Those are really my only two critiques. I greatly enjoyed this story. I thought the characters were great. I thought the plot was very engaging and interesting. I didn't think it necessarily did anything super groundbreaking sticking with the plot, but like I said, seeing that struggle with characters not remembering who you are, especially a very close loved one, that one hit hard. So I definitely recommend Edgewood if you haven't read it and you're looking for a young adult fantasy standalone. It's romantic, it's full of adventure, it's tender, it's sweet. Go read it if that sounds like something you would enjoy. I'm super happy that I read this because it was one of the books on my backlist for NetGalley. We're already doing great with this vlog so far, and now I'm scared to pick my next prompt because I'm feeling like it's not gonna go as well. We're gonna see what I get here shortly. I decided to sit in front of my bookshelf this time because I have a feeling we're gonna get a physical book. I'm scared. I'm really scared because what are the chances it goes well twice in a row, right? Very minuscule. So I picked a blue egg last time, so I think I'm gonna go for a different color. I think the green is calling to me today. Maybe I should go with purple though. Match my sweater. What do we think? I'm gonna close my eyes. We're gonna go with this one. Is it purple? It's purple! Okay, sweet. Why am I so nervous? Okay. Oh no. Oh no, I was right. It's not gonna go well for me. Let's see if it can focus on here. I'm trying not to show you guys my like crusty fingernails while also showing you what this says. It's a struggle. I think you guys can read what that says now, hopefully, if you can read my handwriting. We're gonna read one of the oldest books on my TBR. Yay, I can't wait. I actually have a list written down on my phone, so let's see what they are, because I just made a video about this a couple weeks ago, so I have a couple of titles I can choose from, but this vlog really said, Meredith, you're gonna get your life together and you're gonna read books that you've been putting off for a very long time, and you know what? I appreciate that, but also having to actually do that is scary. So let's see what our options are. Okay, so from the oldest books in my TBR video that I did, I had 7 titles to read, and actually I've read 3 of them so far this year, so like I'm doing really good, and the trend is going to keep on going because I have 4 more titles here that were also included on that video. An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, The Guinevere Deception by Kiersten White, Our Violet Ends by Chloe Gong, as well as Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. So right off the bat, I'm going to tell you guys, don't want to read these 2. I don't want to read Our Violet Ends yet because I feel like I need to reread These Violent Delights, and I don't want to, so we're not gonna read this one. And as far as Norse mythology, this book is just not piquing my interest whatsoever right now, so we're gonna save her for another day. So that leaves us with The Guinevere Deception and An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, which are both intriguing me, and this one I feel like is intriguing me a little bit less than The Guinevere Deception, just because this one I think has been on my TBR even longer, and also I've just been in a very much YA fantasy mood, and I think this one is actually calling to me at the right time. So I'm leaning towards this, but this one also does sound very good. So I'm gonna read the synopsises in my head, and I'm gonna come back to you with my final thought. 1 second. I'm struggling because on one hand, I did start this one before I got like 50 pages into it, and it didn't captivate me enough to finish it in that moment. However, this is one that I like knew I wanted to come back to. It just wasn't the right time. And I feel like I'm gonna be able to pick this one up outside of the context of this video. Like, I don't need that to motivate me because this book just interests me. But on the other hand, I feel like this book I wouldn't necessarily pick up without being told to for a video. Does that make sense? I don't know. I feel like this is a homework assignment that like I'm not like against, but at the same time it's homework, so like I don't want to have to read it right now. I think that Libby made the decision for me because this one had both the Kindle and the audiobook available now, so I went ahead and borrowed them because it'll help me get through the book faster, right? So we're going to be reading The Guinevere Deception by Kiersten White for the prompt of oldest book on my TBR. This one is a Camelot retelling where it centers around Princess Guinevere instead of Arthur as the main character. I'll tell you more about it when I'm actually halfway into it, but let's get started. I am now halfway into The Guinevere Deception. This is going to be a real quick update. First of all, because I have very little to say about this, and second of all, because the girl is tired and I'm barely keeping my eyes open. I'm just gonna try and keep reading for as long as I can because I want to knock out a good portion of this book tonight. The Guinevere Deception follows our protagonist Guinevere, who is not actually Guinevere, right? that is implied by the title of this book, The Guinevere Deception. So our main character is not who she says she is, and she has gone to Camelot to wed King Arthur in order to protect him. So this is a ruse that she's his wife. It's really only in name only so that the public sees her that way, but it gives her an opportunity to be close to him. And the real Guinevere is dead. She's not alive. So she's taken over her identity in order to pull off this scheme. That's what's happening. There's a looming darkness over Camelot that Merlin, who is Guinevere's father, foresaw. And so because of this, he sends her over to Camelot to protect Arthur. I have very little to say about this. I'm not hating it. I'm not loving it. Don't want to say I'm disappointed because I haven't finished this book yet. I feel like it could get better. However, it's just not wowing me. The writing style is not my favorite. I just don't love the language used. It's not like clunky or not descriptive enough. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with the writing. It's just not my personal favorite. So that's why I'm just not engaged with it, I guess is what I would say, because the writing's not really working for me and the plot is very slow moving, which it's not boring me. However, I will say it doesn't excite me, so I'm not like constantly looking forward to what's coming next. It's just kind of like a slow burn. I really don't know anything about our main character except the fact that she's protecting Arthur, and I know that that's part of the ruse. Like, we're not supposed to know who she is, and I'm sure it's gonna be like some big twist in the end here. However, I feel like I don't know her personality either, and that's kind of like where the problem lies for me. So right now it's looking like a 3-star read, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. I would love for it to be more, but if it's 3 stars, that's fine, because that means I won't continue this series more than likely, unless the ending is really, really good and I have to know what happens. But if I don't have to continue a series, it's one less book series that I have to finish this year, and I'm fine with that. So we're gonna finish this, and I will let you guys know what I think when I'm done. Hi guys, so I am now officially done with the Guinevere Deception. I think I'm gonna give this one 3 stars like I initially said. I just didn't really find this particularly enthralling. It was okay, and I am interested enough to pick up the sequel, but not urgently. And I also feel like if I never pick up the sequel, I will also be okay. There was nothing particularly wrong with this. However, there was nothing particularly exciting about it either. I did really enjoy how we took the original Camelot story and we kind of twisted it a little bit in ways that I wasn't expecting, truly. But I am a little bit frustrated with our main character Guinevere, and just some of the things she did were quite frankly stupid in my opinion. And I also wanted to know more about her identity, right? Because that's like the whole point of this book. It's called The Guinevere Deception. I want to know more about Guinevere, and I feel like I knew nothing about her except that she was a big old idiot sometimes. And you know, she had a big heart, but she was a big old idiot. I just wanted more from our main character, especially when she is such a driving force of what this book is supposed to be about. I feel like we're getting hints at a possible love triangle, a possible love like quadruple, whatever that's called, because there were feelings for Lancelot, Mordred, and Arthur. And I feel like that's interesting because maybe we'll explore Guinevere possibly wanting to join the dark side of the war. I don't know. I'm like kind of interested, kind of not. I feel like this was definitely a very slow burn book, and the payout just wasn't really there for me. So nothing super wrong with it. Nothing super exciting about it. Glad I finally read it and got it off my shelf. We'll see if I continue on with it. Now, it is time to pick probably my last book for this vlog. I might change my mind and just be so excited to keep reading that we'll keep doing it. But it's time to pick our probably last egg for this vlog. I don't remember what colors I chose. I think I chose blue and purple. Maybe we should go with green to match my outfit. I feel like we did that last time though, and it didn't end up how I wanted it to. The blue egg, she was perfect. But I keep getting called to pink, so I think we're gonna go with pink. Let's see. Or maybe I should just like stick my hand in here. Ooh, okay. So our last prompt is going to be young adult, and we could choose so many different things for this. So let's take a peek at the shelf here. So I have 3 books left on my March TBR. that I haven't read yet, and one of them is young adult, and that is Crown of Bones by A.K. Wilder. However, I'm not sure I want to read this one, so we're gonna explore. I really want to read Light Lark, but I also don't want to start an unfinished series. Silver in the Bone has also been really enticing me, but I feel like I just read a Camelot retelling, so I shouldn't dive right into another one. I think for simplicity's sake, we're just going to read Crown of Bones, and I've been reading a lot on my Kindle, and I know that this is on KU, so I think it'll be easier for me to know that I can switch back and forth between the two of them. So we're gonna go with Crown of Bones. I'll fill you in once we're halfway in. Hi guys, it's me, once again looking crusty and dusty. So I have a little reading update for you guys, and that is that I am halfway into Crown of Bones by A.K. Wilder. Now that I am halfway, I can hopefully give you guys a better synopsis. I don't even think I explained what this book was before, and I feel like when I've talked about this book on my channel, it's just been very vague because the synopsis on the book jacket is vague. There's a couple different perspectives here. Our main two are Ash and Marcus, and then we also have Kaylin. So Crown of Bones is set in this world called Amatia, where there are things called phantoms that you can raise. It's structured into the society where there are savants and non-savants. Savants are those who have the ability to raise phantoms, whereas non-savants cannot. Savants are definitely looked upon as a higher being. They have more respect because they have this power, and phantoms, the way I picture it, is kind of like a pet that you can raise, or a Patronus from Harry Potter, right? So it's something that comes out of the ground that you call, that is supposed to represent partially who you are as a person. So there are different classes of phantoms that you can raise. There are callers, there are healers, there's warriors. So each type of phantom is unique in its own way, and it has different abilities. Right off the bat, I really enjoy this magic system because I think it's very unique. I haven't really read something like this before, and I think it's cool how it's being used. And I think it's also really nice because it's not feeling overly complex or hard to read, because we're using a lot of familiar young adult fantasy tropes. We have these 6 teens who are going on this quest together, and there's lots of adventure and turmoil, and they're on their way to basically go to this academy in order for Marcus to gain new robes. And the robes are part of how the savants are structured. So depending on the color of your robe depicts your status. So within the savant structure, there is more to it, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm doing a horrible job of explaining this book. The world definitely makes sense as you're reading it. I feel like it doesn't make any sense when I'm explaining it. But so far, I'm really enjoying this book. When I initially read like the first 50 pages, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be a 5-star read. I was really excited about it. And I still am really excited about it, but I think we're more so in the 4-star territory now, because this book just hasn't called to me as much as I wanted it to in the beginning, and I feel like the plot's not necessarily all over the place. However, I feel like it's a little bit muddled and confused as to what it wants to be doing. So we set off on this great adventure in the first part of the book, and now we're in a new setting. So the pacing just feels a little bit strange. I'm not like not enjoying it, but I feel like the first half was so action-packed and we still have half of the book to go. So I kind of wanted more of a slow burn, to be honest with you. Also not sure how I feel about this potential romance between Ash and Kaylin. I really thought that this book was setting up Ash and Marcus to be together, and maybe they are, and there might be some like big betrayal, but I kind of wanted Ash and Marcus to be together. It would be like this childhood friends to lovers trope, and there would be this natural progression, but there's this instant chemistry when Ash meets Kaylin, and so I'm interested to see what happens, but I definitely think that like Marcus and Ash have more basis to go off of, and I would like to see their relationship blossom. So maybe this will turn into like a love triangle situation, because you can definitely see like Marcus is jealous of Kaylin and is kind of fighting his feelings for Ash. I'm enjoying this a lot. I am interested to see what they do with the chosen one trope as well, because in the first part of this book, the prologue, you're seeing a young girl, presumably Ash, raise a phantom unlike any other. And so in the book, they're also alluding to Ash's ability to talk to her inner voice, which is a characteristic of someone who's a savant who can actually raise a phantom, but she's not, or so she's told. So I'm interested to see like Ash's journey of becoming a savant, if that is her, which like we know it's her, right? We're all thinking the same thing. So I'm interested to see her journey into becoming a savant, and also like what her role is going to be in this looming war. So I feel like I talked so much about the plot and I didn't say anything at the same time, but basically I'm enjoying this. I think it's definitely taking me a little bit longer than I anticipated originally reading it, because like I said, initially I was hooked, and now it's just kind of taken on a lot more than I feel like it initially set out to. So it's taking me a little bit longer to read it, if that makes sense. So really enjoying it. It's looking like it's going to be a 4-star, and at this point I am interested in picking up the sequel, and I believe there's going to be a 3rd book coming out as well in May of this year, so I feel like I picked this up at the right time. And yeah, if you've read this, let me know your thoughts if you're feeling the same way. I'm excited to finish this out and let you know what I think by the end. Officially finished Crown of Bones, and we need to chat about it. So right off the bat, I am going to say I decided that this is going to be my last book for this reading vlog. We're not going to do another prompt because this took me a lot longer to read than I expected. I think I ended up reading this over about 4 or 5 days, which isn't that much, but I have been like really going through books lately, and so this kind of slowed me down a little bit. I still really enjoyed this, but that 5-star feeling quickly dissipated, unfortunately, and I think I'm gonna end up giving this one a 3.5 star. I am a little bit disappointed in this because the bar was set so astronomically high when I started reading it, because it just was giving me all the feelings, and I was excited to learn more about this world and the characters. And don't get me wrong, I still really enjoyed this. However, what disappointed me is the potential that this book had to be one of the most unique YA fantasy series that I've read, while still having all those fun young adult fantasy tropes in it. It just didn't deliver as much as I wanted it to. And ironically, I think that's because this book had too much action, too much going on, which feels like a weird thing to say, but I honestly wanted this book to be more of a slow burn. And not even necessarily like slow in plot, I just wanted it to slow down a little bit, because this book was a wild ride from start to finish. You start off with the prologue and you're hearing about this young girl who can raise the most powerful phantom that they've ever seen, and it gets trapped inside of her, right? So it's a very interesting concept right off the bat. And then we're going off on this quest, and then we meet pirates, and we're out at sea, and then we're at this academy and we're studying, and then we go back to the original town, and now there's a war. And it's not that this wasn't all like included in the book, but I feel like the pacing of it just gave me whiplash, and I honestly feel like this book could have been 2 books instead of 1. So this font, I don't know if you can see, the font is pretty dang tiny in this book, so it doesn't push 400 pages in the physical book, but when I was reading it on my Kindle, it said it was closer to like 600 pages, which I believe, because this is not like your standard font used in a book, right? There's usually bigger margins and things like that. So this book was definitely like longer than it appeared. It felt that way, if that makes sense, because of how many times we were just changing topic and we never really sat with anything. And that's what I think the problem was, is like I wouldn't have minded if this was 100 more pages if we just had more time to sit with the characters and sit with their actions. If you like books with adventure, this is gonna do it for you, because there's literally adventure on every single page. And it had a lot of tropes that I enjoy. Like, it had pirates, it had mermaids, it had a magical academy where we go to train, which I love in books and I feel like I don't read as much. It had all the pieces of what I wanted, but it just didn't allow those pieces to really shine, if that makes sense. So I just feel like maybe we could have done without the adventure in the beginning and we started at this academy, or we could have made the adventure like a prequel book, or maybe just started off with going to the academy and then ending at the academy. That's the end of book 1. This book does end on a cliffhanger, which I will say there is a second book already out, and then the third book is coming out in May of this year. So I think I timed it right where I can read like one a month and I'll still know everything that's going on. I feel like I just talked about like why I didn't like this book so much, but like I did like this book, if that makes sense. I just want to showcase like how much this book could have been to me and how saddened I am by that, because I still really liked it, right? 3.5 stars. Couldn't decide if I wanted to give it a 4-star. That's still a really good book. I am for sure going to be reading the sequel. I just think I need a little bit of time away from this book to not give myself further whiplash, because it was just so much action. I just feel like an editor needed another pass at this book and it would have been stellar. So let me talk about more of what I liked, right? So I liked Ash. I liked this chosen one trope, and it's alluded to in the beginning of the book and it doesn't really get touched on until the end of the book. And I also did really like our cast of characters. I like that Marcus has an internal struggle with like what is wrong and what is right, because he's driven by his phantom, and his phantom is a warrior type who is very aggressive and wants to destroy, and he doesn't necessarily know how to distinguish between the two. So I think that's definitely an interesting character arc, and I can see him becoming possibly an antagonist in future books. We also have Kaylin, who is morally gray as a character because we don't really know a lot about him in the beginning of the book, and I kept seeing like hints of who he was, and I'm not going to spoil that, but there are things that make him morally gray and you're kind of wondering like, what is he doing all of this for? And then we also have a couple of side characters who aren't really as relevant, but they are a part of the story, and they do have some really great moments with the other cast of characters. But honestly, I would recommend this one. I think that the characters were great. I think that the dynamics are going to be interesting. I think that the magic system is just so unique, and I thought it was very refreshing how we used all these YA fantasy tropes and we brought them into this new and unique world. So I think that like right off the bat, that's really just what drew me in about this book, was it had a magic system unlike anything that I'd read before, and that is exciting because I feel like that's hard to do in a way that didn't feel like it was talking down to the reader, nor did it feel like overly complicated to where I could never understand. Okay, so now just to recap the vlog, right? So these lovely little Easter eggs were actually pretty kind to us. We didn't have anything lower than a 3-star. So for my first read of the vlog, I read Edgewood, which was like forever ago at this point. I've been recording this vlog for a couple weeks now, and this one was 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one actually, and I think it was just a perfect young adult standalone fantasy. So if you're looking for something like that, definitely pick up Edgewood. The second book that we read was The Guinevere Deception, which I did give 3 stars to. I will say I did try to read the second book in this series, The Camelot Betrayal, and the library only had it on audio, so that might have impacted my experience with it, but I listened to like an hour and a half of the audiobook and found myself completely disinterested. I didn't really care about what was going on, so I don't think that I'll be continuing on with this series. However, I might try and physically read it and see if that helps, if I can get an ebook copy from my library. It just wasn't available at the moment. We might give it another shot, but this series I think might just be a DNF for me. I enjoyed The Guinevere Deception for what it was. However, it just didn't do anything that really excited me. Lastly, a book that did really excite me was Crown of Bones by A.K. Wilder. This one was a 3.5 star. I think it's closer to a 4-star though. I would recommend all these books. I think it just depends on what you're specifically looking for. If you're looking for a YA standalone that feels familiar, go with Edgewood. If you're looking for a Camelot retelling with characters that you could grow close to, go with The Guinevere Deception. If you're looking for a YA fantasy with an interesting magic system, Crown of Bones. It's a no-brainer. So I feel like all these books definitely had something that made it unique, and I love that they were all YA fantasies. I've been trying to get all my vlogs like that because I've truly been in my YA fantasy era and having such a great time. I will say, before you leave, before you click off this video, I have so many more prompts in here. And so what I was thinking, hear me out, is we can take all these prompts that are in the egg and do like a TBR jar kind of moment. And I know a lot of people on YouTube do the TBR jar as like a TBR, obviously, but I haven't seen anyone necessarily do it as a vlog kind of structure. So what we did here, because let's be honest, the Easter eggs are just a fill-in for a TBR jar, and that's kind of like how we were doing this. But what if we took the prompts in here, right, and we put them in a jar, and then we read said book for a vlog? So let me know what you think about that. Some of the other prompts that I have in here were like popular hyped book, we have friend pick, thriller, so like just a bunch of other prompts were in here that I feel like could have been interesting and that we didn't get to. And I also think that like the TBR jar is such a fun way to pick books. However, I already have a TBR game that I do every month, so I don't know if it's necessarily like gonna make sense for me to do both as a TBR. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. If you liked this video, please let me know. I had so much fun doing this. It truly was just such a joy getting to open up each egg and see what was inside of it. It was like a fun little reward, and we found some good books out of it, so I'm very grateful for that. Let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them, if you have any fun holiday themed content coming out. I would love to go watch it. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, comment down below, and subscribe for more book related content. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye y'all!